Hello and welcome to another Excel tips video. I am Sumit Bansal and in today's video I will show you how to split text in a cell into multiple rows. Now splitting text in a cell into columns is quite common. Let's say you have first name and last name and you want to split the first name so that you get first name in one column and second name in another column. That's common and we already have a text to columns feature to do this. But what if you want to split it into rows? Let's say you have an address where you have the name of the person, their house number, their street name, their city name, their state name, and you want to split all these into separate rows. Now there is no dedicated feature to do this, but this can easily be done using a function or some other workarounds. So in this video, I'll show you a couple of methods to split text into rows in Excel. So let's get started. So here I have the data that I want to split into rows. This is an address and I want the name of the person in one separate row, then the name of the street in another row, then the city, and then the pin code and the state code in another row. So I want to split it based on the delimiter, which is the comma followed by a space character. So I want this to get split into one row, then this to get split into one row. Now to do this, if you are using Excel with Microsoft 365, there is a function that can be used and that function makes it very easy. It's called TEXTSPLIT function, which as the name suggests would split the text based on the delimiter. So here I'm going to use this function and it takes a lot of these arguments, but I'm not going to give all of these. I just need to give two of these arguments. The first one is the text, which is the cell that has the text, which would be this reference A2. Then it's asking for the column delimiter, but this is needed if you want to split it into columns. In my case, I want to split it into rows, so I'm going to leave this empty. And then I need to provide the row delimiter, which in this case would be comma followed by space character, because that is what separates each element. So I'm going to put this in double quotes. So in double quotes, I would put comma followed by space character. Now there are these other optional arguments. Ignore empty is when there are subsequent delimiters, then it is going to ignore them. Match mode, where the delimiter would be case sensitive, and pad with is when it would pad the results with whatever you provide here. But I don't want to use all these. This is just the formula that is going to do this for me. So as soon as I hit enter, it is going to go through the content of the cell and split it based on the delimiter and give the result in separate rows. It's just very easy if you're using Excel with Microsoft 365 with this formula. Now, when you're using this formula, just remember that there should not be anything in the cells that will occupy the result of the formula. So in this case, I had to make sure that these four cells are empty, because if any of these cells are already filled, then the result is going to give me a spill error. So make sure these are empty. Now let me show you a couple additional scenarios where you can use text to split. So in this case, the case I first showed you, I had the same delimiter. So I had comma followed by space character. But in this case, you can see I have a separate delimiter. I have comma and then I also have a dash here. So in this case, I would have to change the formula slightly. Here I'm going to use the same formula, text split. Then this is going to be the text. Then I would leave this blank. And now in case of row delimiter, I'm going to provide it in curly brackets, and then I'm going to specify both of the delimiters. So in this case, I would have comma and space in double quotes. Then I would have comma, which means that in curly brackets, I'm specifying two delimiters. And the other delimiter in this case would be space dash space. And then I would close the curly bracket. And now when I hit enter, it gives me the result where it is going to use both these delimiters, and whenever it encounters any of the provided delimiters, it is going to split it into the next row. So in case you have one single delimiter, you can use this simple formula. But if you have two or more delimiters, then you can use something like this. Now, in case your data, your address is like this, where it is separated in the same cell, but with a line break. So here you can see it's not in one single line, it's in four separate lines, but in the same cell. You can again use the text split function. But in this case, what I'm going to do is choose the delimiter in a different way. So here, this is my text, and my delimiter in this case is going to be char 10. This represents a line break character. So when I use char 10, it is going to find this character in the beginning of each of these cells, because there is a line break. So now when I hit enter, it is going to give the same result where all these elements are in separate rows and where my original data had line break. So the line break has been used as the delimiter. And final example that I want to show you, which is very, very amazing, what text split with some other functions can do in Microsoft 365, is here I have these names and I want to get all these names in separate rows, but these are not in one single cell. These are in separate cells and I want one name in each cell. So I want Stephen here, James here, Anna here, and then Richard here, Helen here, Toby here, and so on. So for this, I will use text to split, but before that, I would also combine it with other formulas. So the first thing I would do is I would use the text join function, which is a new function. I think it is also available in few Excel versions outside of Microsoft 365. What this does is it is going to combine all of these to give me one single string of names. So here first it asks for a delimiter. Let me give the delimiter as comma and space, which is the regular delimiter in all these cases. Then I'm going to ignore the empty, and here I'm going to give it the text, which is these cells. So I would give it a range that I want to combine. Now the result of this would be that all these names have been combined into one single string. So I get all these names as one. Now it becomes very easy for me to split these into separate cells or separate rows. So here again, this is my text. So the result of text join function becomes the input for the first argument of text split. I do not want column delimiter. I want row delimiter, which would be comma followed by space. And now when I hit enter, it gives me the result here. So I can just copy this, get it here. So this is again very, very good use case where a simple formula can do something that actually would have taken a lot of maneuvering with complex formulas if these functions were not available in Excel. Now let me show you some methods that you can use in case you do not have access to the text split function. If you do not have text split function in your Excel, then another way you can do this is by using text to columns functionality. Now with text to columns, it takes the text and then splits it into separate columns. And then once you have it in separate columns, you can transpose that data to get it into rows. Now this is not elegant, it is a bit of a workaround, but it does work. So let me show you how it can be done. Here I have the data, so I'm going to select this cell. Now I will go to the data tab here, and in data tools, I would click on text to columns. So now when I click on it, it opens this convert text to columns wizard. And in step 1, I'm going to select delimited because there is a delimiter that I'm going to use. Then I would click on next. And here in step 2 of 3, I'm going to select a delimiter. So in this case, I'm going to select comma because comma is what is separating each element in the address. And then I would click on next. And now it asks me to identify or specify the destination where I want the result. So let's say I want the result here in cell A4. So I'm going to click on this and then select A4 or A5 here. And now when I click on finish, it is going to give me the result, which is the separate element of these this address in separate columns. So you can see I have the name here, then I have the street name, city, and the code, state code, and the pin code. So now I have the result here, and I will have to now transpose this. So to transpose this, I can select this and copy this data, then come to another cell where I want the result, right click on that cell, go to paste special, and here I have this option of transpose, and as soon as I click on transpose, it is going to give me the result here. So you can see that I did get the same result, but you have to use a couple of additional steps where you first have to use text to columns and then you have to transpose it. Also, this is not dynamic, so in case I come here and I change anything, it is not going to change the result. I will have to do this again. Another problem here is that I have these extra spaces here. So you would have to either manually remove it, or you can use find and replace, or you can use a trim function to do that. But it is not very elegant. The thing is, if you do not have text to split function, you can still do this if it's something that you need to do sometimes. If this is something you need to do quite often, then maybe you can use the VBA method that I'm covering next. But if this is something you need to do once in a while, then this method works fine. And now let me show you VBA to create your own custom function that you can use to split text into rows in Excel. So this is useful if you do not have access to text split function and you do not want to use text to columns. So here I have the same data set. Now first thing I would do is go to the developer tab and then click on Visual Basic. And when I do that, it opens the VB editor. You can also use the keyboard shortcut Alt F11. So hold the Alt key and press the F11 key, and it again opens the same VB editor. Now here I'm going to insert a module and then paste some code into that module. So I already have the code here. So let me copy it, and I will have this code in the description of this video, so you can copy it from there. And here I'm going to go to the insert option and then click on module. And now I'm going to paste the VBA code in the module code window. Now what this code does is very simple. It is going to use this function which is called SplitCellToRows, and I have named this function. You can name it whatever you want. And it is going to take two arguments. The first one is going to be the cell value, which is going to be the cell reference that has the text, and the delimiter, which is going to be comma in this case. Now what it does is it has this variable SplitValues, where it is going to split the text of the cell based on the delimiter, which is comma. And then it is going to go through each element and trim it to make sure that there are no additional spaces in it. And finally, it has this function where it returns the value in a transposed way. So see how it works. Let me go back to the worksheet. I've already created the function. So while I'm typing the function, you'll see that the name appears in the IntelliSense while I'm typing it. And now I can hit tab to autocomplete the function and then select this cell reference, which has the text, and specify the delimiter, which is comma in double quotes. And now when I hit enter, it is going to give me the result where based on comma, it has split the text into separate rows. You can also see I have a space after comma, but because I have created the code in such a way that it does not have these leading spaces in the beginning. So this is again very simple, very fast way if you do not already have TEXTSPLIT function in your Excel version. Now when you're using VBA, make sure that you save the file as a macro enabled file in case you want to use this in the future again. And if you want to keep reusing this function on multiple workbooks on your system, then you can put this code in your personal macro workbook. I will have a video link in the description where I'll show you how to create and use personal macro workbook. So you can just put the code in the personal macro workbook so that you will be able to use this function on all your workbooks on your system. So these are some of the methods you can use to quickly split the text in a cell into separate rows. If you're using Microsoft 365, the easiest way is to use the text split function. But if you're not, then you can use the text to columns functionality or create your own function using VBA. That's it in this video. I hope you found this useful. Also, if you're liking these videos, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and click on the bell icon so that you never miss out on any new Excel tips video I come up with. Thank you and have a nice day.